And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Friday, March 15th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCPodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCPodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that being said, let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to talk about a couple of wide receiver moves from last night. Keenan Allen, in a shocker, gets traded to the Chicago Bears. So we'll get into that. Also, Marquise Brown joining the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's what we'll talk about at the start here. And then I want to talk about the Chargers more in the second part of the show. We'll talk about Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa restructuring their contracts. And I'm just going to kind of dive into, what the Chargers have done here in the offseason. I'll talk more about Keenan Allen getting traded to the Bears in that segment as well. So the first two segments are kind of going to be Charger related. And then a couple things towards the end of the show. Third part of the show, we'll talk about the Falcons introducing Kirk Cousins. We'll also talk about him and Saquon Barkley being involved. Well, the Falcons and the Eagles being involved in tampering. So we'll get into that as well. Because Kirk Cousins had some things to say at his press conference that made you pause for a second. So we'll get into that. And then we'll also talk about all the latest news and all the top free agents that are remaining left. So, that's pretty much the rundown for the show today. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about a couple of wide receiver moves from last night. So the big move was the Bears getting Keenan Allen. So the Chargers, they traded Keenan Allen to the Bears for a fourth-round draft pick. This trade follows, of course, Mike Williams being released. They saved $20 million. The Chargers, they're dealing with some cap issues, and I'm pretty sure I did say I expected Keenan Allen to remain with the Chargers, because now, when you look at the Chargers offense, a lot of the guys from last season are gone now. Austin Eckler's now with the Commanders. They just released Mike Williams. Also Gerald Everett, the tight end. I didn't realize this, but he's I think he's with the Bears now too. Now they trade Keenan Allen, and it's like, who's Justin Herbert going to throw to? Well, you got Quentin Johnston, who did not have a good rookie season. You have Joshua Palmer still there. So you figure the Chargers are going to draft a wide receiver. They also did bring in Gus Edwards as well. You figure they're probably going to draft a running back. So, I thought it was very interesting. But, I think this is a great trade for the Bears. Keenan Allen's coming off of a great 2023 season. It did get cut a little bit short towards the end because he ended up getting hurt. But also, the Chargers really weren't playing for anything. So, Keenan Allen shouldn't have had to play in meaningless games. So that's why they sat him. But, at least that's what I think. He had a great 2023 season, 108 receptions, 1,200 yards receiving. He's a six-time Pro Bowler. He's 31 now. He's been in the league, forever now. I go back to when the Chargers were playing the Broncos in the divisional round when Peyton Manning was still playing. And, Keenan Allen was Phillip Rivers' top target then. And now, flash forward to now, and now he's going to be off the Chargers. And we got to see what the Bears end up doing at the quarterback position, because they still got Justin Fields, and they have the number 1 overall pick, so you figure they're going to go with Caleb Williams. But whoever the quarterback is going to be, you got weapons all over the place with the Bears. You have Keenan Allen, and you pair him up with DJ Moore, and that is a great duo, wide receiver duo. They get DJ Moore with the trade with the Panthers last season. He has a solid first year with the Bears. Now you bring over Keenan Allen, who's coming off of a solid 2023 season. They added DeAndre Swift. You got Cole Kmet. I really like the direction the Bears are heading in. And I talked about the NFC North, and I kind of said how the Vikings and the Bears, they're kind of the teams that, are going to be fighting for third or fourth place. Well, if the Bears get good quarterback play, I mean, for whoever they end up choosing, whether it's Fields or, Caleb Williams gets drafted and he ends up being the starter, um, the Bears are going to be in that conversation for the division. Again, the defense made improvements last season as well. I mean, the trade with the Commanders to get Montez Sweat really worked out for them. Montez Sweat led, the Commanders and the Bears in sacks. He led the team in sacks on two separate teams, which is funny to think about. But like I said, I really like the direction that the Bears are heading in. And again, you're adding another solid weapon. I mean, they ended up losing Darnell Mooney, and I mean Keenan Allen I think is an upgrade over Darnell Mooney, and we'll see how Mooney does with the Falcons, who we'll talk about later in the show. But again, I really like the direction that they're heading in. And again, if they get good quarterback play, I mean, they definitely could be a team that contends for a playoff spot in 2024. But that's really what it's all going to come down to. So, but I really like this move for the Bears. They didn't give up a lot to get Keenan Allen, and yeah, again, it forms a nice wide receiver duo with DJ Moore, and like I said, Cole Kmet has been solid the last couple of seasons. So, and the running game, I think the running game is going to be good. So, I think you still got some work to do on the offensive line. That was a problem. But again, I mean, you really got to like what the Bears are doing. And again, they got a big decision with the quarterback situation. So that was the big move. Then you also had the Chiefs adding a wide receiver. They added Marquise Brown on a 1-year contract, $11 million. And, he was with the Ravens, then, goes to the Cardinals. I actually want to pull up his stats. But yeah, I mean, he's dealt with injuries as well. But yeah, so 2019, his first season, he only had 584 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns. 2020, he had 769 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. Then he had over 1,000 yards in 2021 with 6 touchdowns. 2022, he had 709 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. And then 2023, he had 574 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. And the Chiefs, they add a receiver. And a receiver that has some drop problems. But, again, I think it's an upgrade there. And if it ends up panning out, and it's a 1-year deal, that could end up being a sneaky good signing because he could be a guy that, he's a deep ball guy. And that's something that, the Chiefs kind of were missing in their offense a little bit. Valdez-Scantling, obviously he had problems in the regular season. I mean, the receivers in general for the Chiefs had problems during the regular season. But, of course, you get to the postseason and you just forget about all that because then, the Chiefs, they, of course, go to the Super Bowl and, we all know what happened. But, I mean, I think this definitely has the potential to be a good signing. But, there's definitely it definitely could not work out too. There's the other side of that. But again, the Chiefs needed to add a receiver in the offseason. And again, it's a 1-year deal. So if it doesn't work out, then, Marquise Brown's not coming back. But I think with Patrick Mahomes, I mean, he's going to make plays. He's going to make plays. And we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. But like I said, the Chiefs wide receiver was something that they had to address. And they went out and did that. So, and we'll see what else they do. Obviously, Mahomes, he restructured his contract. So maybe there's, more moves to be made. Or they could go and draft a receiver. I know I talked about this, but, they're just, watching some ESPN, them talking about it possible that, they get Xavier Worthy from Texas, the wide receiver. If he ends up falling to them. But one way or another, I think the Chiefs are not done adding to the wide receiver core. And I'm curious to see what they end up doing with Kadarius Toney. So is he going to be on the team next year, or are they going to cut ties with him at some point? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, maybe they still believe in him. I mean, they cut Valdez-Scantling because he was making a lot of money. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what they end up doing with Kadarius Toney. But I think this could be a sneaky good move for the Chiefs. I think it's an upgrade. But again, I think the bigger move of the two here is Keenan Allen going to the Bears. Keenan Allen has been a very consistent receiver over the course of his career. And now we'll see what ends up happening with the Bears again, because they have like I said, big decision on their hands, and they got to decide what they're going to do. And again, we could possibly see that scenario where Justin Fields doesn't get traded and they draft Caleb Williams. So, but yeah, I mean, this offseason has been crazy so far. And there were some other moves that were made as well, a couple of trades, some trades involving quarterbacks. But I wanted to talk about that towards the end of the show when I go over, the remaining free agents that are still left. So yeah, that's towards the end of the show. But yeah, I mean, this offseason has been wild. And, I think, I don't know how many, if there's going to be any more trades. We'll just have to wait and see. But then I think it's time to focus on the draft, But still, there's still players out there to be signed. But yeah, like I said, I mean, this offseason has just been unreal with the moves that have been made. So, when we come back from our first break of the show, we're going to discuss the Chargers more. We're going to talk about a couple of their defenders, restructuring their contracts. Again, the Chargers situation, again, their cap situation's a mess, and they are really they really had to make some tough decisions, as you could see, trading Keenan Allen now. But yeah, I mean, these were two guys that in Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack that could have been on the way out, but doesn't seem like that's the case. So that's what we'll discuss when we come back from our first break of the show. Again, like I said at the top of the show here. Then after that, we'll talk about Kirk Cousins and the Falcons introducing him. He did have his press conference, so we'll get into that. And like I just said, we'll talk about the latest signings and deals that were made, as well as like the remaining free agents. That'll be for the final part of the show. So yeah. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.